Utah has added 2 players through the transfer portal, and a few former Utes have found a new home. Let's talk about it on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We are available on all platforms, including YouTube and wherever you may get your podcast. If this is your first time listening to our show, make sure you like and subscribe. Love interacting with all of you in the YouTube comments as well as on social media, where you can follow our show at Locked On Utes. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of five antibiotics that treat 50 plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. My name is JT Wistrcill, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. Excited to be joined on today's show by the Deseret News' Ryan McDonald. And Ryan, there were a lot of fans that were really frustrated with Utah's lack of talent additions pre the new year, as there were a lot through the transfer portal. There were a lot of players leaving because the transfer portal closes January 2nd, really early, that you have to be, a lot of guys get out and leaving. And yes, the top quarterbacks, they had kind of decided where to go, but you saw a lot of the skill position players, or really just the non-quarterbacks in general. Those was the group that was kind of taking more of their time waiting to decide, as is the case with recruiting and everything, right? Like everyone's going to focus their attention on the top guys, and then slowly but surely it kind of trickles down from there. And I think that's what we saw with Utah, and they waited, and they've added 2 guys now through the transfer portal. And we'll get, or 2 more recent guys, because they already added Ryan earlier, the tight end from UCLA, but 2 guys added just over the weekend, and they had even more up to visit. So it shows you this Utah team is doing a good job getting to work and finding these recruits. The first guy that Utah was able to add, and this was a guy I'm really excited about, is a Michigan defensive back transfer in Cameron Calhoun. This is a guy who's a top 35 recruit in his class. He's a 4-star corner, and I think he's a guy that's going to have a chance to play right away. His former school was Michigan. So you're telling me he didn't play on a team that's currently in the national championship? Yeah, I'm more than down to get that talent over here in Salt Lake City, and I think he's got a chance to be a real impact player for this Utah team next year.
Yeah, I mean, you that does kind of make your eyes go big, right? When you hear a guy from Michigan, yeah, who's going to play tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, well, he's not going to, but they're Michigan's going to play. I guess we're recording this on Sunday. He's gonna play in the national championship game. So yeah, it stands to reason, and I think that does make people's eyes go big, and probably for good reason. I think another thing that stuck out to me when I saw that was going to be happening was that he's young. He's not just going to be kind of a one and done, type, grad transfer or something like that. I would assume that the plan would be to have him here for in Utah for multiple years. And I think Utah needs that with the secondary. They lost a lot of people in the secondary, to whether it be to the NFL or transferring elsewhere. They've lost a whole bunch of guys in the secondary this offseason. And so, yeah, to get a guy who at the very least has a good pedigree, like you said, he was a top recruit in high school and then ended up at a place like Michigan. To get a guy like that who has lots of years of eligibility remaining, I think is really good. And Utah's defensive coaching staff has proved over time to be really, really good, right? Like they're a really good developmental staff. They, they get, they turn guys who aren't highly recruited coming out of high school. They turn them into NFL players, and so, yeah, to get a guy who theoretically has a lot of talent, and then you get him with Utah's defensive coaching staff. I think that's a really, really good get. Obviously, I say this every time, like, you never know until these guys actually get on the field. You never know. The kid, people miss scout high school kids all the time, where they rate them highly and they turn out to be nothing, or they rate them too low and they turn out to be great. So I always say, you never know, but it seems like everything's there for Cameron Calhoun to be an impact player at Utah for a while.
Yeah, it's such a roller coaster with the guys and if they're going to work or not. Because you're absolutely right. This is a thing where Utah. There's a reason that before Utah was landing 4-star recruits, they were winning Pac-12 championships, or at least making them even before us, because they do a good job identifying talent, recruiting those players into their program, developing them, as well as just identifying the character traits that those guys are willing to buy in, work hard, and do what's necessary to help them get those wins. So I think that's a huge credit to Utah. And you're right. The last time Utah got a 4-star, well, not the very last time, because I guess you got Smith Snowden and CJ Blocker. Smith Snowden, we saw some nice flashes from this year, but the last 4-star corner who was at Utah and stayed a few years, that's a guy by the name of Clark Phillips, who was a great at Utah, now getting a chance in the NFL. He actually did get mossed today, unfortunately, but he's still young. We're giving him some time to make plays. Still just nice to see him out there on the field battling against a guy like a Chris Olave, who he didn't get the chance to go against in the Rose Bowl all those years ago, because Olave was one of the opt-outs at the time. So funny how that stuff works out. But just talking more about Cameron Calhoun. He's a guy, as stated on the Fan Nation All Utes site, he was his high school's all-time leader in interceptions. He had 14. So you're talking about a ball hawk, like the measurements as well. 6 foot, 173. So got some good length on him too. And I'm just excited to see him compete. I think he's a guy who have a chance to play right away. To me, when you're talking about the starters in the secondary for next season, with 5 open spots, because you need 3 corners that can cover it all time pretty much, and then you need the 2 safeties. It's Zamiah Vaughn is going to be a starter. Outside of that, I do not know. Do I think that Smith Snowden, Teo Johnson, and now I think Calhoun is right in the thick of that too, along with the CJ Blocker? All those guys are in there to battle it out. But I like that you also brought up how young Calhoun is. This is a guy from the 2023 recruiting class. So even if he doesn't play this next year, I don't see him being like, oh, I'm going to enter the transfer portal again. That's a dangerous slope to do unless you're a quarterback by the name of JT Daniels, because that dude played at 4 different colleges in 4 years, basically. But outside of something crazy like that, even if he weren't to start right away, I would still expect him to remain patient. I don't know. Maybe he could transition to safety, and maybe he wants to complete with more of a Jonathan Hall and a Nate Ritchie as well. We also heard plans about maybe to move Teo Johnson to the safety spot there. But either way, once again, there's really one spot that's locked down, the Utah secondary. And outside of that, everything's a competition. And I got to believe that's something that Calhoun found extremely attractive about the University of Utah.
Yeah, I mean, and different kids obviously have different motivations for ending up where they end up, and sometimes it's NIL. Can I just get on my soapbox? They got to get different acronyms with NIL and NLI. All right, soapbox over.
That's true.
I'm done. So different kids have different motivations, and if this kid ends up not playing at Utah, who knows? Maybe he will transfer again, to a G5, school or something. Who knows? But I do think that he probably found appealing. Yeah, I can go to a P5 school still, and have a chance to compete. Maybe he didn't see that path at Michigan. Maybe he thought, I don't think I'm not very familiar with Michigan's roster, but maybe he just thought maybe there isn't a chance for me to really ever get on the field at Michigan. So I'm going to go to a high quality P5 school. One that has chance for me to play and at least compete for a job. I different kids go to different schools for different reasons, but I would think that probably that chance to compete was probably attractive.
I think it absolutely was. And what's awesome for Utah? Calhoun wasn't the only player they added through the transfer portal this past weekend. Want to tell you about another guy that Utah added along the defensive line here in a moment. But first, want to talk to all of you about our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL regular season is wrapped up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because the playoffs are starting to get going and there are some great action we got to bet on. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is easy to use. There are so many different ways to bet, like a live same game parlay. You can find bets in the new Explore tab. You can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, and the best way to find popular parlays and more. So you can visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. And Ryan, speaking of FanDuel, look, we're recording this before all the odds to the games have been released for NFL matchups, but personally, I got my eyes next week already on Matthew Stafford's return to Detroit, the Rams taking on the Lions. And maybe it's the Puka Nacua stuff and how crazy good he's been, but I don't know. I feel like the Rams might actually win that one.
We shall see. I did think it was funny, and former Salt Lake Tribune Utah beat writer Josh Newman, familiar with I'm not sure if he's a friend of the program, but
he is. We've had Josh on numerous times. Yeah,
Josh Newman, friend of the program. Yeah. He kind of gave like to me, I took it. I could be wrong, but I kind of took it as like like, oh, is this like scripted? The whole joke about the NFL script, and so he made a joke about that today about, oh, that turned out nicely that Matthew Stafford is the first. I think he said something like, the first home playoff game for the Lions in forever, and they're playing against Matthew Stafford. So that was pretty funny. But yeah, I won't say I'm a Lions fan because that would be too strong of a word, but I like the Lions after Hard Knocks. That got me liking the Lions. So we shall see.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting situation to monitor. That is for sure. And make sure you guys head over to FanDuel to monitor all the NFL playoff action. Also want to talk to all of you about another sponsor of today's episode of Locked On Utes. It's UCCU, the UCCU mobile banking app. Learn and earn, and it pays your entire family to learn about money. Kids look to parents to become more financially literate. Parents, they don't always know the answers. Learn and earn breaks down financial topics into fun, bite-sized educational games like quiz and trivia. Every time a family member completes a topic, they earn points that can occur and can be redeemed for gift cards to stores like Amazon, Apple, Sephora, Walmart, Nike, and more. There's age-appropriate content for every member of the family who can compete against each other and track their progress on leaderboards. Learn and earn is inside the UCCU mobile banking app, so you can play it anytime, anywhere. The more you play, the more you learn, and the more you learn, the more you earn. Learn and earn, part of UCCU's award-winning B Money Smart Youth Banking Program, helping kids, teens, and parents have fun while becoming more financially literate together. UCCU, love where you bank. Ryan, adding talent is always great. And you know, it's even better than adding one talented player, adding two. And that is what Utah was able to do. Calhoun, they already landed him. And another guy that they got actually even earlier than Calhoun, I believe, timing wise, was they got a pass rusher from UTEP. It's Kanious Vaughn. And I apologize for mispronouncing his first name. We did spend the beginning of the show trying to figure out the correct pronunciation for it. He had 6 sacks and 2 forced fumbles in 2023. And this is another guy too, just got good athletic intangibles, 6'2", 233 overall, and this comes to us from our friends at Fan Nation All Utes. He spent the past seasons at UTEP where racked up 19 tackles in addition to those sacks and fumbles, and he's a guy who's slowly but surely been climbing the ranks, started his collegiate career at Saddleback College, and has just continued to get better from there. And to me, I'm all for adding talent up front. This is definitely, I didn't feel like defensive line was a position of need for Utah, but look, they obviously saw something in Vaughn. They did just lose Jonah Ellis, so as much as I like, just on paper right now, the 3-man rotation of a Connor O'Toole, Van Fillinger, Logan Fano, and then the other guys. Okay, it's going to be Chase Kennedy. Is John Henry Daly going to come in and make an impact right away? Is Vaughn going to be in there? I don't know, but what I love is having talent and not being, you want to just have the cupboard full. So if injuries occur and happen, you don't have too much of a drop off there. We saw guys miss time this year. Connor O'Toole was supposed to be this team's best pass rusher. Did not play for pretty much the entire first half of the year. And then we saw Jonah Ellis step in right away and really become the best pass rusher on this team. Utah has several guys that can do it. And I think Vaughn is a really nice depth piece who could potentially play a lot in surprises next year.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said depth. Well, one of my biggest pet peeves when people get talking about recruiting is thinking that every guy who comes in is going to be, the 5-star, the pack. And I guess that's why people get so excited about recruiting is the chance. Oh, and Utah has proven, like we talked about a minute ago, Utah has proven that they can take under the radar guys, and make them stars. But when I think of this kid, I think yeah, he doesn't scream he's going to come in here and be the dominant force on the line. I do kind of think that he might be more of a depth piece. At least that's just kind of what it seems like. But you're right. You're exactly right. I think when you say that I don't think you can ever have too many. And especially, with the way that the last season went for Utah with so many injuries kind of everywhere, you can never have too much depth. And I think it's interesting. Maybe I put too much stock in guys' previous schools where they're transferring from. But in a sense, this kid Vaughn is kind of the opposite. As I lost my train of thought. Michigan. What is his last name? I'll call him Michigan.
Calhoun. Yeah.
Calhoun.
Yeah.
I was like, I know it starts with a C. I lost my train of thought. You know, when we're thinking Michigan, oh, this kid, he plays for the national championship contender, and then when we think UTEP, okay, not exactly the same, but who knows? Maybe this kid, is gonna come in and maybe Utah sees it. Well, clearly Utah sees something in him where they're like, all right, this kid can play at the Pac-12 level, or Big 12, I guess.
Yeah, no, I know.
I got to get used to that.
I do as well.
This kid can play at the Power 5 level, because I do trust Utah's evaluators. I think they've proven time and time again that they are really good evaluators of talent, and so a little bit with this kid, and maybe it's unfair that we almost have higher expectations of Calhoun than we do of Vaughn, just because of the Michigan versus UTEP thing, but I think at the very least, there's no reason to believe that Vaughn can't come in and be a nice depth piece, and then we'll see if he can be more.
And to your point, I mean, for the collegiate level, Vaughn has proven more than Calhoun has to this point. It's just the stars, the ratings, and the rankings that lead us to think like, okay, Calhoun. And the other reason I had initially said like, okay, Calhoun, I look at like he's got a good chance to play next year versus while Vaughn definitely does as well. Vaughn is at the moment at best to me third if Logan Fano's ACL recovery isn't going well. If Fano is back and good, then he's at best fourth, and that's once because then he's competing with the Kennedys with Kennedy, then John Henry Daly, and then that's where he kind of gets in there as well. And that's not even mentioning any other defensive ends that this Utah team has on their roster. Because last year we had a guy like Keanu Tanuvasa, who we didn't expect to. We thought Junior Tafuna and Samote Pep were going to be the two guys at the defensive tackle spots, and then there's Tanuvasa doing his thing. You had Fotu also making a number of plays up front. Aliki by Mahi still doing his thing there too. So that's just a deeper room. Hence why I think Vaughn, I'm curious to see what his role will look like next year versus Calhoun. He could come in and legitimately be this team's second best corner and earn a starting spot because there's not that proven commodity across from him. So that's where this is just going to be a fascinating race to watch and see how it plays out once these guys, I assume all of them, their goal is to get enrolled early, get in spring. We saw guys last year, Spencer Fano. I don't think he starts in the fall if he doesn't come up in the spring. That's a freshman, but still, even like a Leavani Demuni, right? Like as talented as Leavani was, he wasn't able to get up here until the fall. So therefore he was behind Lander Barton and a Karene Reed. Would he probably be, and will he be next year? More than likely, yeah, but it's just a nice advantage to get up here early and in the spring and get rolling early. It helps these guys out a lot. And the Utah offense and the Utah defense can be complicated to learn too. So get these guys in early, get them to learn. And both these guys will have chances to see the field. So it's going to be interesting to see. Utah had several other players up for a visit. That's something we're going to continue to talk about on Locked On Utes this week. But want to close out today's episode by talking about two former Utah Utes who have found new homes in the transfer portal and talking about how Utah will do that now that those players are, kind of final nail in the coffin, not going to be coming back, but talking about what it means for Utah and those players. I want to dive into all of that in one moment. But first, I want to talk to you all about our friends at Jace Medical. I know we come to sports to escape with some of the crazy realities of life, but can we just talk for a minute about preparing for real life? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. And this is scary. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than someone close to me or just anyone out there getting sick and with a supply chain issue keeping them from that life-saving medication they need. Thankfully, we'll all be okay because of Jace Medical. The Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, Sicilius, skin infections, among others. This stuff can just happen to any of us at any time, so it's best to be prepared. And in order to do that, you can visit jacemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medication will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to prepare than today. You can go to jacemedical.com and use code LOCKEDON, capital LNO, to get $20 off your order today. All right, Ryan, close this one out. We've been talking about the talent Utah's been adding, but they did see 2 players enter the portal, and both those guys have now gone on to find homes. First one of those being Jaquindon Jackson, officially over to Arkansas now. Jaquindon starting out at Texas at the quarterback spot, then comes to Utah, tries to do the same. They convert him to a running back. It ends up being a great move for him for basically a year and a half, if you go back to the second half of the 2022 season and then all of 23. And look, whether it was how one-dimensional Utah's offense game at times this season because they struggled to throw the ball, offensive line play was not as consistent this year as it had been in the past. I was extremely impressed with Jaquindon, and I'm excited for him to get this opportunity to go over to Arkansas and make some plays in the SEC, something I absolutely think he's going to do.
Yeah, I think especially for this program, to me, when I think of Jaquindon Jackson, I just think of a really good dude,
Yes.
kind of just one of those dudes that you're, as far as I'm aware, you're kind of rooting for in life. He went through all the stuff with the deaths of his friends and then all that stuff, and then switch positions. As far as the story has been told, he just wanted to contribute however he could to Utah, and was willing to make that switch from quarterback to running back. And so to me, I say nothing, but the best for JJ. And yeah, we'll see, what he can do. It was kind of interesting to me. I was kind of unsure where he might end up. I couldn't really get a gauge of, is he gonna, I really couldn't tell. I didn't really have a read on what type of school he might end up at. And so, yeah, the SEC is obviously the best of the best. And I'm excited for him to see what he can do on that level. Cause yeah, I say nothing but the best for JJ for sure.
Yeah, he had a tremendous year and a half at Utah, as we discussed. And also from the Utah perspective, they added Anthony Woods. They still have Mekhi Bernard, Jalen Glover there. I feel like Utah's fine at running back. We've talked about Utah's corner depth already, but JT Broughton entered the transfer portal, actually had the whole name change thing as well. So, he came back to Utah. It was a little bit of a confusing thing, but now he's officially at TCU. He was from Oklahoma, so now going to be a little close at home. Utah will play Broughton this coming season again, so that'll be fun. But another dependable guy who started on this team during their runs to the Pac-12 championship. Like, he actually missed the 2022 season or 21 season with an injury, I believe, sustained during that one, missed some time during it, played some, but then missed some time. And then 22 was a key piece. And then this year as well, still helped this. Yes, he got beat from time to time, but still helped this team have an elite defense overall on the year. He's a guy who gave this Utah program a lot of good stuff, and excited to see him go tear it up at TCU now, hopefully outside of that one time he plays Utah.
Yeah. There again, maybe he doesn't have quite the story, as JJ does, in terms of everything that happened with JJ here. But yeah, like you said, a guy who contributed and was really, really solid for a long, long time. And there again, I was like, I wonder where he'll end up, what type of school, if he's going to kind of move down, quote unquote, to like a G5, or I just had no real good read on where Broughton might end up. But yeah, there again, a really solid Ute for a long, long time. And yeah, I would say that there's no reason again to not root for him, except for, like you said, Utah fans might not root for him the day that they're playing each other. But
yeah, I should mention too, it was the reason he had to come back to Utah for a moment was the name change McLeod. So Travis McLeod now at TCU. So wishing Travis McLeod now the best over there. And it's going to be interesting to see what the future holds for them. And this Utah team is going to continue to add talent, but there's lots going on at the University of Utah and just in the sports world. Ryan, where should people head over to if they want to learn more about it?
Go to deseret.com, deseret.com. You can find us all there.
All righty, Ryan, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Utes, but we'll be back with you tomorrow, and we'll see you then.